Welcome to Optimal Game State. And this is the third in my series of solo or co-op games that I've been looking at recently and have been quite interested by. This is 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. So printed by Modifius, and the is it Nordic Badger Games? I think it is. Who are actually the other side of it. See if I can double check that. It says it here somewhere. Nordic Weasel Games. My apologies. Nordic Weasel Games, which seems to be mostly Ivan Sorensen. Now, they have a few different games on the go at the moment. So this is 3 Leagues from the Borderland. Sorry, 5 Leagues. 5 Leagues from Borderland. They also have 5 Parsecs. Sorry, I'm just going to pull back the Ranger's Shadow Deep. I think it has it at the back. No, not that one. There we go. So the other version that they have for this is 5 Parsecs from home, which does seem to be very similar to it. And yeah, they do have a couple of expansions to it, which I actually wasn't aware of. I think they're probably only in PDF, but I'll have to keep an eye out for that Ancient Land of Dust. That sounds interesting. I'm always fascinated by any of the Egyptian stuff. Anyway, so this is 5 Leagues from Borderland, third edition. Now, let me just pause. Excuse me. Okay, so we'd already talked about some of the McCullough games, and to a certain extent, this is similar in many regards. So I'm briefly going to talk about how the combat rules work. So you have your initiative phase, then everyone gets to it's basically there's a roll to see whether they're going to make it into the quick section or the slow section. And then if you make it into the quick section, you get to act before the enemies. And if you make it into the slow section, you make it after the enemies do. So this is a solo or co-op game. It isn't for versus. This is a game where you are designed to play against an AI. Actions again are that classic move and attack, or move and shoot. Um, yeah, you can skip your move action, combat action, or non-combat action, but you cannot change the sequence to take your move action last. Okay, so actions. During a given phase, a player character activate in any order they may desire. During the enemy phase, the enemy will always activate figures with range attacks first before activating melee troops. And when you activate a figure, it may take a move action, then perform either a combat action or a non-combat action. And combat actions are basically melee or range attack, and then a bunch of other things. The move has an interesting system where basically your normal move is a normal move. If you want to take a non-combat move it's basically a dash. So it's a non-combat action, and basically it is a shorter version. So rather than double moving, you move and then you dash, which is kind of a shorter speed. Anyway, all right. So there's a lot of things about how you move and where you move. A lot of that's very familiar. There are some rules on combat and terrain. A lot of that's kind of normal. Okay, now this one's kind of interesting. So this is the combat system. Before we were looking at D20s, and this is D6. And now Warcry is one of the games I talk about a lot. Warcry uses a D6 pool. This actually just uses a single D6. So you get a single D6 per shot. So that's typically going to be one per figure. There are ways to get more additional dice when you're rolling, but it basically it's yeah, you're almost always going to be rolling one basically. And then to score a hit, so you've got your range attack list here. So if they're within 6 inches in the open, you look for 3+. If they're within weapon range in the open, it's 5+. And then if they're concealed or behind cover, you're looking for a 6. You do get to add your combat skill onto it, although it does say you only get to do that if it's stationary. A 1 will always miss. So we have an idea of how big the bonuses are. I can't see it here yet. But I do want to skip briefly on to the next section. So you can see that this bastard sword is in melee +0 +1. And then the crossbow is range 24 and +0 plus or +1 +0. So those basically damage is split into kind of what you'd consider to be two different skill rolls. And when you actually do a hit, the first roll is used to see if you overcome armor. And then if you manage to overcome armor, then you're looking to overcome the toughness of the target. And then fighters will, have specific values for those. So it is kind of that classic. I'd almost call it a kind of classic GW. It is roll to hit, roll. Well, I think they would have said roll to wound and then roll save, but here it is roll against armor first, roll to break armor, and then roll to see if you actually wound. If you do manage to overcome armor, essentially it is they're wounded, and if they get wounded a second time, they're out. So, relatively simple, pretty straightforward. The melee is a little bit more complicated. There is actually a back and forth. So both players roll, and there ends up being 3 exchanges. So yeah, so you pick your weapon. There are a couple of different tactics you can do, like fight defensively or evasively. You resolve the exchange. There are opportunities at the end of each of these 3 exchanges to kind of push someone back if you win the exchange and that's what you want to do. But if you succeed and you're doing damage, you do have the option to kind of do more damage. Got some rules. Spellcasting. I'm going to skip past spellcasting. There's tons of spells. Some stuff on running away. Proficiency tests. And proficiency tests are basically kind of skills. And again, a lot of it is it's kind of narratively driven by the scenarios, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so here we've got an example of some starter characters. So this here is a kind of an example of how you do it. So you've got pre-generated characters: Blixt, Perrin, Stafford, Sunderland. So they're all agility 2, and agility, among other things, is what you use for your to see if you're going to be going first or in the quick before the bad guys or in the slow after bad guys. I think it is you're rolling your d6, isn't it? And then you're trying to get under. So yeah, count the number of. Oh, actually, yeah. So this system is a little bit interesting. So you count the number of characters and allies, and then roll that many d6, and then assign them. Any character assigned a die result equal to or lower their agility will act in the quick action phase. So with these 4 characters, if you're only using these 4 characters, you're going to roll your d6. Any 1s or 2s can push that character, and you choose which characters are into the fast acting phase, and then all the rest will be in your slower one. So it's a nice system. It gives you a little bit of choice, a little bit of decision. I quite like that. Then you've got the enemy here. So obviously they don't have agility. Doesn't really matter to them. They're going to have speed. So the first part is normal move, and then the second one is, I think the second one is the dash value, is it? Yeah, so you're adding on the extra 3 to dash. They've got the combat skills, whether they're rolling onto their d6 or adding onto their d6. Toughness is they're going to be the target to actually injure them. And then we've got a couple of kind of standard weapons. So we've got self bow, light weapon, and light armor, and then standard weapon. So 1 bow, some standard weapons and light armor, and one's a little bit lighter with standard weapon and partial armor. And then similar on the bad guys, but armor 001. Okay, this really isn't what I'm looking for, but I just wanted to mention it because to a certain extent, all games are variations on the idea of each character gets 2 actions, a move, and a fight. And the fight is you roll some dice and someone gets injured or they don't. There are lots of different ways of doing it, and you will find ways that you prefer over others. But I just wanted to make that point out there. What I'm really interested in this book, however, is that it is all about generating stuff. So this is your campaign. And where before, when we were talking about some of the color books, we had kind of pre-generated scenarios. This is just table after table after table after table. And it's very, very, very cool. It's a different approach. It's a different style. You could probably get some weird combos that aren't going to make sense. But it also has the option of being kind of very rewarding, I think, because it's it's going to be unique to you. You are the only person who's going to kind of play this particular scenario. So you make a region, you make a, your home base. Is it a manor? Is it a nomadic camp? Is it a military outpost? You make a map, you put some locations around on it that you're going to be exploring. You determine what the bad guys out there are. So there's foes within and foes without. Foes within will be okay, so they mentioned the gnawing horde, beast-like hordes that emerge from underground to reclaim the world. That could be the Skaven, or the foes without, the Duskling warbands, ruthless warlord-driven warbands. You could have different options on how you go with that. You could interpret that as, being dark elves, or you could interpret that being Slaves Darkness, or will and a lot of the kind of content in this is vague enough that you could kind of play it the way you want to play it. Actually, I probably should go back. They do have rules on generating your own characters. And in it, they kind of have a little bit of a background to it here. Okay, so yeah, so it's human, fey blood, duskling, preen, halfling, and feral. So human, we roughly know. It looks like fey blood are probably elves, elvish. Dusklings are probably dwarfs. Preen are bird-like animals. So not your kind of standard D&D. They're Arakoa or one of these different kind of styles. What do we have here? That's the preen. We've got halflings. Okay, that makes sense. And then we have the ferals. Ferals could maybe be a bunch of different things. Um, yeah, anything that kind of fits in, what is it, hybrids of animals and humans. Typically, wolf or a great cat. So you could have cats, you could have hyenas for your gnolls. You could have werewolves. You know, so I mean, it's kind of its own story, its own background, but at the same time, you can kind of take it your own direction and go with it whichever way you want. So you don't necessarily have to use you could skip out on the preen, you could skip out on the ferals, and then you've got, a Warhammer Fantasy or Soulbound or Age of Sigmar, whatever you want to look at it, setting. You can kind of reskin these, you can kind of tweak these as you want. Lots of stuff on backgrounds, which is kind of cool. Mystic, Zealot, Townfolk, Outrider. These are all giving you bonuses. These are all looking to generate kind of unique, distinct characters. Actually, I did mention, but you are looking to generate 4 characters, isn't it, in total? 6. So yeah, okay, 4 heroes and 2 followers. Then yeah, there's a separate section for generating your followers. Um, aspiring scholar, faithful servant, a hired guide, and so on. And then you pick one of them to be your kind of main character. So it's the avatar, the you character. We talked about the battle round. Talked about proficiency tests. So that was the starter scenario. They do have something called story points, but we're gonna gloss over that. Okay, we talked about the establishing your base and then looking at the campaign. So a lot of this is going through a flow. I think it's at the back here somewhere, is it? I think there is a chart in here somewhere that summarizes um, the full end-to-end system. So yeah, okay. So this is a bit of a monster, but basically you start off. You check to see what local events are, hard times, campaign activities. There's a trade option, research. Then you get to decide your adventure, and then you start outfitting for adventure. You move into the outfitting adventure stage. So let's look at this preparation section for a start. So town events. There's a wandering healer. There's a gambling craze. You get an opportunity to gamble. um, Camp events, a wandering hero. So these would be where the first section is if you're in camp, town events, sorry, in town, and then the second one, camp events. So if you're looking to get some events that are happening outside when you're not in a kind of a civilization. Um, then we have hard time section. So this is about managing your finances, tracking, healing, upkeep, making sure everyone's paid, everyone's healthy, and anything else you need to kind of worry about there. Repairing gear. There's like kind of lots of bits in between that kind of capture some of that role playing element that you don't always get when you're doing the war games, because you're going from kind of skirmish game to skirmish game, and it's supposed to be the skirmish game that's kind of telling the story. But there is potential for things happening in between, and because again you're not playing against someone else in this, you are playing against whatever gets generated, whatever happens out there. So trade goods. Okay, so you're going on your adventuring. So there's a couple of different things you can do. So you can explore location, look to kind of defeat an enemy threat. There's some areas you can patrol. There's contracts you can go on. So it does roll up missions for you to go certain places and do certain things. Um, if they require you to travel, then you make your travel rolls. That'll have a travel encounter, maybe some battles and locations, and then you'll actually get to the encounter itself. Um, you will roll up the encounter. So I'm going to skip quickly ahead to 113, which is where all of this happens. Okay, so the encounter stage. So these are some of the things that you could encounter if you're traveling. Random people you could bump into. Humble priest. Okay, this is the meat of it. This is the battle encounters. Okay, so there are 6 scenario types here. So it's a meeting engagement, a defensive battle, a raid, a site battle, or a monster lair. Pretty broad. So you determine the foe, and the foe can be determined in 2 different ways. If you prefer the campaign where difficulty escalates with time, select the first infantry from the encounter table that you've not yet faced in battle. So, and then you kind of scale it up. Where do we have that? Where do we have an encounter table? Unique foe table. Foe terrain. Where am I finding the encounter table? Apologies. The travel encounters. It's not what I'm looking for. Enemy leadership. All right, I'm not sure what's going on there, but the point is, you are randomly generating what you're going to be facing against. Now, to a certain extent, this can be tricky. This can be a problem because you kind of need to have something for everything. So you might end up wanting to kind of limit that. There's a quick play option here. Enemy brings 5 figures and any number of modifiers, and then we're calling their profile. Always led by a lieutenant. And then we got a couple of kind of unique characters. Now, a lot of these are kind of generic. So we've got a Grim Knight, a Corrupt Sorcerer, a Cunning Infiltrator, it's a Ranged Cultist, a Mighty Warrior. Those are all things that you could use for any particular enemy and faction and style. Kind of determine who their leader is, what their motivation is, where it's going to happen, terrain features. Again, terrain can be a bit of a challenge. I kind of feel in cases like this that maybe what you should be doing is kind of rolling randomly from options that you have, and then going with that. Then the scenarios they've got are essentially victory conditions. They're ways for you to declare the encounter a success. So the ones that they have, so fetch something, search for someone, scout the area, investigate the area, eliminate the enemy, hunt the enemy, and secure the area. So these are all pretty generic ones. So we've got battle plans here. Do they say? Okay, so they give where it can be set up, where the enemies will be set up, distances between them. So there's different battle plans, and you randomly pick between them. Random options, traps, monstrous lair, random elements here, and then enemy tables, enemy profiles, desperate mobs, sneaky thieves. And then yeah, they have them for the different enemies. To a certain extent, I don't know where I stand on this particular system. Um, that's not why I picked up this book. That's not why I'm interested in it. What I am interested in is all of the stuff around the actual battle. I love the idea of randomly rolling up enemies. I love the idea of randomly rolling up the objective and the mission. And the way they have it set up, where at the start you basically make a map with unexplored places, other towns that you are aware of, you know, a ruins that you can explore later, and you don't necessarily know what's in it yet. But you do, you know, have the opportunity to travel out and to explore them, and then randomly roll on a table and find out why you get there. It's what's the word? Emergent storytelling, I guess. Um, you know, you are getting to meet people, you're getting to do things. You're not quite sure what you're going to face against, and then once you get into the actual battle itself, um, hopefully the randomized selection of options that you've tailored makes sense. And yeah, like if I was to kind of compare this to Warcry, it would be kind of a case where you know you're going to fight a monster, so you know the cards that you're picking for that monster scenario are limited. You're not going to be taking all of them. Um, so the ones that you will be using will be making a little bit more sense. And once you actually get into it, then again, the focus is going to be to complete your objective and then get out alive. So in this case, rewards, if you complete your objective, you receive the vital information item plus D6 gold marks. What's this one? You get to roll on a table. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for flanking, eliminate. I'm looking for victories. I'm looking for what you get at the end of it. Objectives here. Each character retreats from table for the warband clears 3 exploration must roll in the fight. Oh, okay, so you want to stick around until you've explored everything. It's monster's lair. Ending a scenario. Enemy has no figures left on the table. Warband has no figures left on the table, and the objective. So if the objective has been complete, you may complete it and then retreat off the table. Okay, this is another victory and defeat. Your objective is to defeat the monster. If you slay the monster, you acquire normal rewards indicated in the loot chapter. There's a loot chapter? Oh, I missed that. Adventures. Solution campaign. The loot chapter. Enemy tables. Beastry. Loose. Oh, okay. There's an entire chapter at the end that I hadn't been paying attention to. Okay. So resolution. Resolution phase. So we rolled up a bunch of stuff at the start. We rolled up a bunch of stuff in the middle to make our campaign. And then in this resolution phase, we're going to check to see what injuries and post-battle effects we have, as well as what loot we have. Now, another element in this that I know I mentioned before is that the adventure points. Adventure points are something that you can use, from what I understand, to kind of drive the story forward. Um, that might not be something that you're going to be interested in every campaign, but it kind of makes sense in this one because there's so much random stuff going on that sometimes a little bit of control over it can be good. Okay, so we've got more injuries here. So again, we're doing one of these rolls to see if they're dead or not. Whoa, wow, that's a 20% chance of dying. Sorry, but you get a story point out of it. That's pretty lethal. And item damage is an option as well in there. Ooh. Okay, we got different injuries. Options to advance. Okay, and then here we have a random table for unusual finds. So you're on a scenario, it's a raid. On this, you might find some battered weapons. There's also some news, you know, things that are happening nearby. Um, Maybe something simple. The weather is getting worse, and then there's campaign advancement. And they again, so many tables. I love this. Okay, and then loot. If you defeat stuff, you get to roll. You receive 1 loot roll if you achieved your objective. Note that holding the field does not reward a loot roll in itself. You need to have achieved the object of the scenario. Um, and then, yeah, you might have got something. A warhammer, a fine warhammer, a misty water flower, a butter knife. No, finding knife and a fury biter. Those are different. Enchanted armor, bits and pieces. Cool. Okay, and then we have what the enemy is doing in the background. At various points during gameplay, you will be directed to the enemy plans below. This means the enemy is in a position to take action. If you're in a region where all threats have been eliminated, you may ignore any results that would refer you here. After all, there are no more enemies to move against you. So let's find an example here. So 3034, enemy agents have burrowed deep into the ground to find something. Select a delve on the map. If none exist, add a delve in the wilderness. On depth 3 and below, use the selected threat table for enemies. Don't know what that means. Until you have cleared the delve, the threat in question adds +1 to the number of enemies encountered in any battle. I have to admit, I have only gone through bits of this, and I have not actually played it. But I'm just fascinated by the all the tables, all the story around the main game, and kind of the meta game that happens. Not the meta game, the yeah, no, I guess it is a metagame because we consider the actual game that you play on the board to be the main game, and everything else around it is a metagame. So it's kind of in this case, it's kind of an onion. The very center is the actual war game on the table, but then there's these roles outside it, and there's the story happening, and there's the things that you have to do. So stuff is happening. You know, you are looking to um defeat the bad guys, save the kingdom, and I guess be the good guys, but probably get paid at the end of the day. And just that idea of having all these tables and all these things going on around the actual game, I think is absolutely fascinating, and so good. Um, this is probably something that you could um, leverage for your own games. So you maybe like a lot of the roles here do reference um, the actual mechanics itself. So you're getting gold here, and then that gold is being used to buy a spear, and that spear has specific stats, and those specific stats are used in the combat. But at the same time, I feel like for me at least, although I do intend to try out this game system, I think what I'll probably end up doing is using this as a way to kind of generate the board that I'm going to use, and then have the games played out in a different format. And maybe we'll try out. I'll probably try Warcry with it. I have to admit, Warcry I do like a lot, but I guess I could try Frostgrave, one of the others. There's no reason why I couldn't try this game as well. Um, I mean, it does the classic roll to hit, roll armor, roll wound. That is a bit of a classic. It's been around for a while, and I guess with some good reasons. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this. It's kind of funny that I'm less interested in the main game than I am all the tables around the game. The idea of all the consumables and all the different references to what the bad guys are doing, their plans. I just think it's very, very, very cool. It is something that you kind of want to leverage, and this does kind of talk about it a little bit, I believe. You do want to leverage the collection you already have. So while you can randomly roll into something here by the looks of it, I think you're probably best off picking an enemy that you have the models for, and then focusing your campaign on them, and then kind of develop that out. So if you've got a good goblin collection, spend your time cleaning up and fighting against goblins out in the wilderness rather than trying to cover every base and get everything all at once. Um, yeah, just work what you have and have a good time, because that's totally fine. That's totally okay. All right. I do know I need to spend more time reading on this. I hope this gave you a bit of an overview if you've never heard of this before, and you've never seen it, because I've heard people talk about it, but this is my first time, or I haven't actually seen a video about it beyond Or I haven't seen the video until I haven't seen the contents of it till I actually opened it up myself. But yeah, I think it's an absolutely fascinating idea, and it is something that I'm happy I have, and I'm delighted to have in my collection, and I am going to use. So this is the last out of that series that I wanted to look at. So I did do my 5 leagues, I did do my Rangers of Shadow Deep, and I did do a section on all the Frostgrave ones. So I hope you've enjoyed these. They have lots of different ideas around solo and co-op play that I think are fascinating. Um, there is definitely a lot of fun to be had in playing, the normal 1v1 competitive game, but I think there's also a lot of good games and story to kind of play in that kind of gray area between skirmish, war game, and RPG, which kind of brings it up a next level. So thank you very much for listening to me on these rambles, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, have a great day.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.